So I'll do this again. Welcome everyone to our January 25th event called Breaking into the World of Privacy, Where to Begin, part of Data Privacy Week here in Canada in the Greater Toronto area. This is an event brought to you by Manage Privacy Canada, where privacy can be beautiful, and under the auspices of Knowledge Flow Cyber Safety Foundation. Just a quick introduction of who Managed Privacy Canada is. We are a managed privacy compliance company. We provide research and thought leadership services such as Privacy Anytime, Anywhere. And we bring to you all kinds of webinars and practical privacy insights series. We also have a partnership with technology partners that support privacy compliance efforts in privacy offices. Like I said before, we are gonna do this session as a Q&A. So our panelists are gonna start by answering a lot of questions. We'll encourage you to put your questions in the chat only and to keep your video off and your sound off so we don't have any disturbances. And I am now going to introduce our panelists. It is my pleasure to bring to you three star young privacy professionals. They're all stars in the same galaxy, the big family of privacy professionals. We have Sarah Hassan. She is a privacy professional, has been working in the Canadian and international privacy space for about 4.5 years. She has made a name for herself scaling agile privacy programs that meet ever-changing compliance and legal challenges seen in the tech space. Sarah currently works as privacy analyst for Shopify, but she's been moving around in the industry quite in a lovely way, and she'll talk about that intent in her career. Sarah has graduated the Privacy Management, the Digital Enterprise Program at U of T, and she's been my student, and one student that I took notice of. She was also my mentee in the ISACA Privacy Mentoring Pilot Program. And Sarah tells us that in her free time, she is studying to acquire her CIPM certification, and she's a youth privacy professional at the IAPP under the Toronto KnowledgeNet chapter. Thank you, Sarah. We're so happy to have you here. I'm gonna go next to Mercy Ogunsanya, and Mercy is a dually qualified lawyer called to the Nigerian bar and the Ontario bar. She currently works as an in-house lawyer with Mitel, a very known telecommunication company with privacy requirements in multiple jurisdictions where she advises on such regulatory and privacy matters. Mercy is a certified CIPP professional, Canada and Europe. She was one of our volunteers last year with Managed Privacy Canada, and she really distinguished herself by helping us write policy documents and providing all kinds of interesting insights for us to support nonprofit organizations in their privacy compliance needs. She's also a young IAPP privacy professional with the Toronto Knowledge chapter. And we've recently found out that Mercy loves storytelling and writing, and she is ready to launch a wonderful book for young kids called The Web, with the aim of creating privacy awareness and online safety for kids, which aligns perfectly with the Knowledge Flow Cyber Safety Foundation. So thank you and fantastic. And then last but not least, we have Safayat Mohammed, and he's a senior consultant in the privacy and data trust team at Ernst & Young Canada. Safayat was also a student in the privacy management program at U of T, and again, one that I took notice of because of his diligence and his going over and beyond. And that's to be said for all these three panelists. And that's one characteristic that I want everyone to take notice. Safayat is a CIPP professional, was called to the Bar of England and Wales, is a member of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn. He holds then the CIPP-C certification. He graduated our program at U of T, and he helped me in the privacy mentoring pilot initiative with the ISACA Toronto chapter. He actually helped me set up the pilot. Data privacy and cybersecurity are some key areas of interest for Safayat. He's excited to be building a career where innovation, commerce, and governance intersect. And welcome to you, Safayat. And without any further other introductions, that was a bit long, but needed to be noted. Let's move on to what are we going to do today? Today, we're going to talk about these 3-star young professionals' journeys with the aim of hopefully sharing with the audience how they started, what steps they took to get where they are, and what are their plans for the future, what they've learned on the way to solidify their career in the privacy profession. So I'm going to start with Sarah. What was your journey?
Yeah, so I find that having talked to a lot of people in the privacy space, a lot of people get into privacy in very, I guess, random ways. And so I consider my journey very similar to that. I had almost completed 4 years at the University of Toronto for my undergraduate degree. And I had taken a privacy class just off the cuff. I decided to take it, and I ended up loving doing research in the privacy space and really loved exploring some of the content. And a professor at the time pushed me towards trying to join organizations in a privacy capacity. And so shortly after I graduated, I landed my first role at TELUS as part of their privacy team. And ever since that, I've navigated my career into a few other areas. I jumped into tech after leaving TELUS. I went to OpenText, and then now I'm at Shopify. And so my journey along privacy and getting into privacy, I think, was interesting. But you'll see here with all the other panelists, there's no one way to get into privacy and no one way to be a privacy professional. And so that's what makes privacy really unique, I think.
Excellent. And we're gonna keep people curious, because I wanted you to get a little bit into, but that will be the next question, kind of how did you find your first role and what helped you go to the next role? So I'm gonna stop on that, and I'm gonna go to Mercy and ask Mercy, what was your journey? You come from such a different background, like, most of us immigrants, have to get into the first job in Canada and then still do what you love to do as a lawyer, as a very highly skilled professional.
Thanks. So getting into privacy for me was intentional. It was thought through. So when I thought of relocating to Canada in 2019, I started planning what I was going to do when I get to Canada. And most people had told me that law wasn't for Black immigrants. You couldn't be a successful lawyer in Canada because you're Black and you're an immigrant. It was white dominated. And I had been practicing law for 10 years and I didn't know any other thing to do. And so I began to think, how can I create a niche for myself in the legal space? I wanted to do law, but I didn't want all my efforts studying for the exams to be in vain. I didn't want to finish and then I didn't get a job. And so I started researching on areas of the law where I could specialize in. And so I came across a post on LinkedIn. It was a job ad for a privacy lawyer. And I was intrigued. I was like, oh, what's a privacy lawyer? And so I went through the job ad and I was like, oh, we do this in Nigeria, because I was actually in a healthcare company back home in-house. And I had come across privacy, but it wasn't a standalone specialization in Nigeria. So it was something that you do along with several other things you do. So I was like, oh, so you made it a standalone specialization here, something I could actually focus on. And so that intrigued me and I began to research more about it. I came across the IAPP because I realized that most of the job ads required some form of certification. And so I decided to register for the certification and make privacy my focus area. One thing that drew me was the fact that most of the job ads I saw for privacy lawyers or privacy specialists, I realized that because you could see how many people apply for a role on LinkedIn. And so you would see 2 to 10 people apply for such roles, while other legal roles, you would see hundreds of applications. So I knew, oh, okay, so if you want to distinguish yourself, if you want to be noticed somewhere, it was better for me to focus my efforts here where the competition was low and I could still, it was an area that I had already had some form of background in. And so that was how I started my journey into privacy.
Very well thought out. Very interesting. Safiyat, you I think you're sharing a little bit that lawyer background and immigrant with Mercy. What was your journey?
Thanks, Amalia. Yes, I do share that commonality with Mercy, but I do feel like I have stepped on a lot of commonalities that when migrants move over to Canada face. And when I moved to Canada in 2016, it was difficult to get into the legal space or the privacy space at that point in time. And I had to take the first job I could to survive. I had a baby on the way. And I think I've shared this story with you, and some other people who are very close to me know this story. In the winter to spring of 2017, I was driving for Uber. And I came across Biren Agnihotri, who is working in leading the robotic process automation in EY Canada. And he was one of my customers. I picked him up, and all the way from downtown Toronto to Maple, we just talked about everything to do with AI and process automation and analytics. He encouraged me a lot and introduced me to the network within EY. And what that door opened for me, when that door opened for me, I actually came across your profile on LinkedIn, Constantine, Carlos, Syed, and that's how I got to learn about the academic side, which was expanding into privacy. I remember you hadn't started your course yet, and the cybersecurity management course was the only one at U of T SCS that was remotely connected with privacy. So I enrolled into that, and one term into it, you and Constantine pioneered that course. So at the first instance, I applied and finished the course. That gave me the knowledge of the day-to-day activities that I would have to do because I didn't have much experience within that space. That really helped, and the community that accepted me, welcomed me, and has been my support system in Canada. That all came together and pushed me into the industry and helped me break through. That's been my journey.
Wow, that's fun. I always remember that story of you being the Uber driver and looking up to this guy and saying, one day that's going to be me. I'm going to walk at EY. I'm going to be at EY. And here you are there. So that is a fantastic story. So I'm going to go back to Sarah and say, Sarah, you started at TELUS and then you really moved in the industry. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about these jumps in the industry and what helped you from one to the next?
Yeah, for sure. So I can kind of relay my experience at TELUS. So I was very fortunate to work at TELUS, and I, from my understanding now, having worked in the industry for a few years, I can look back and say that TELUS's privacy program was very mature. They had a very comprehensive, large team. And so it's really interesting to work in a capacity where you're not only working with privacy professionals, but also privacy lawyers and also people in the security team. So I kind of saw different facets of people's experiences in privacy, and I had a great time there. I got a lot of mentorship, and so I knew that in order for me to gain non-Canadian privacy experience and also experience in the privacy program management space, which is where I want to specialize in, I had to move into and quickly move into a team that was new and I was building out their privacy program. And so this was only a few years post GDPR. And at this time, a lot of companies had an established privacy program. So I saw the opportunity at OpenText, which was just in their infancy of starting a privacy program and having a privacy team. And I decided this would be the best place for me to kind of expand my horizons and take on some more challenges and enter more of a compliance related privacy role. And so I was lucky to move to OpenText after TELUS, and I was mentored by Ruby there. And she is a really big name in the privacy space, and she just instilled so many privacy lessons. She really molded and guided my appreciation and understanding of privacy programs and how to scale those programs. And shortly after, I landed at Shopify, and I'm there now helping to scale the privacy program.
That's fantastic. I do remember when I got an email or text from Ruby saying, "Hey, do you know this lady, Sarah? Was she your student?" So I just want to tell the audience, this is not nepotism. This is the incredible ability of these three, and that could be you, by going through a course, by networking, by getting the right mentorship, to be noticed. It had nothing to do that Ruby knew me. It just, she asked me, did she really take your course? And then I remembered how brilliant Sarah was. I still remember your presentation in the first course when I was looking over with my colleague. Well, we couldn't see each other on the screen, but I phoned him and I said, "Oh my God, who was Sarah? Like, how what happened there? She's the youngest in the class." Anyway, you can see, you can really write down some of the little tidbits that Sarah and Safayat and Mercy are saying to you. You have to have a plan. You have to look for a network. You have to look for knowledge. You have to look for the right mentorship. But in your plan, you have to start building those gaps that you have so you can move forward, right? Because that's what happened to you, Sarah. You learned at the OpenText role, and then you applied for Shopify. And I didn't know anybody at Shopify. That was all you. Right?
Yeah, I was very intentional about moving throughout my career in different roles, and I knew that starting from TELUS, I was in a very mature privacy program space, moving to OpenText, which is very new, and Shopify is right in the middle. And so over the last almost 4.5 years, 5 years, I've covered a lot of ground when it comes to privacy program management work. And I've been very lucky to receive opportunities where privacy sits in different functions of the business. So I've seen how privacy operates on a very large nuance level. And so I was very lucky, I think, right place, right time in a few of those circumstances. But I think networking is key, and taking extra courses outside of the skill set you already have will definitely put you aside from other candidates.
That's fantastic. I'm going to go to Safayat next and ask you, because I was kind of along a shadow behind you and saw how your career exploded. Absolutely. You got a job during the pandemic, and you had just finished the program at U of T, and then you texted me or emailed me and you said, "I have an interview with this company," and then you got the job when everyone was being let go during the pandemic.
Yes, and I was on that boat too, because the previous company I was with, as soon as the pandemic hit, I think March 16th, 2020, we were sent back home, and roughly a month into it, we were furloughed. And in that month, I had interviewed with BMW Canada. But following that, 3 months of hiring freeze because everything was shutting down. But what helped me in that process was, once again, my network and LinkedIn. Because during the interview, I had connected with these people who I then made the effort to connect on LinkedIn. When I didn't hear anything back over the next couple of months, I had a channel to reach out to them. And that showed eagerness and dedication. And I think that paid off at the end of the day. I think it was June 2020 when I finally broke into a privacy role with BMW Canada.
And how did you move to EY?
That happened as I was working with BMW Canada, and I had already worked with you and Carlos, who leads the privacy and data trust team from the front with Ruby, by the way, who
All coincidences,
Sarah
guys.
just
All
alluded
coincidence.
to.
When it's meant
Yes.
to happen, it's the stars align.
So, having gone through the cybersecurity program at U of T SCS2, I got to know Syed Carlos from there. And once I had passed the certification course with you, privacy management in the digital enterprise at U of T SCS, uh, that's when we started working on ISACA privacy
The pilot, the
pilot
mentoring
program.
pilot, yeah.
Yes, the mentoring pilot program. And we got lots of insight and direction from Carlos. We got to build a rapport with him. Amalia already had one. I think Carlos recently shared a story with me where you guys had some interesting stories to share in Ireland, that I'm not going to go there. But in any case, when Ruby joined EY, there was huge development coming in within the privacy and data trust practice at EY Canada. And when Carlos put up the role that there is a vacancy, I reached out to him through LinkedIn, asked him if he thinks I am a good fit. And I had that experience I had gathered at BMW Canada, which also helped me understand a lot of the issues that go beyond privacy and is integral to be good, better, and move on with that trajectory within the privacy space, namely the technical knowledge base, how information systems interact with each other. Those things we are not taught in the CIPPC course. A lot of the day-to-day activity we are taught at the U of T SCS course, but that experience really helped, and Carlos saw that fit. He was very kind enough to introduce me to Ruby, and that panned out to an interview with Yogan, who leads the cybersecurity practice as a whole. He's the partner of the cybersecurity practice at EY Canada, and rest is history in the making.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Mercy, you had a completely different, you came to me asking if you can volunteer. And I remember you being incredibly quiet. And I remember thinking, how am I going to work with this girl? She is so quiet. I don't know what she likes. I don't know what to ask. And then you blew my mind, because I have to tell everyone, Mercy was one of those rare people, like the other two here, who asked me after I asked her to do something, Amalia, what else can I do? And that just, I shut down all my computers and I wrote on my walls, I need to clone Mercy about 1,000 times. So tell us what was happening in your life when you connected to volunteer with us at MPC.
Okay, so after writing this CIPP, I began to apply for some jobs. And I remember that the first job I interviewed with was with the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services. And normally they will send you the interview questions a day or two before the interview day to go through and prepare. And when I got the questions, I looked at the question, I'm like, what is this? The CIPP certification did not prepare me for those questions. I had no idea what those questions meant. So I had to really do a lot of research to understand what the questions were and how I was going to answer it. So I knew that there was a gap, which I needed experience to fill. I knew that just relying on my CIPP certification was not enough. It was just an introduction. So I needed more to be able to really go into the field to say, okay, now I'm a private professional and I can do this, I can do that, and I can do this. So I began to look for opportunities to learn. And I had reached out to a lot of people on LinkedIn, connecting with them. Some people would definitely respond back. Some would say no. Some would say, oh, because of the COVID freeze and all that, they really didn't have much they were working on. And in all my search, I came across Amelia and I came across Managed Privacy Canada. And I remember I had gone through her profile and I was like, okay, let me try and reach out to her again and see what comes out of it. And so I reached out to Amelia to say, okay, can I volunteer with you guys? And she was welcoming. As to my quietness, I know a lot of people say lawyers talk a lot, or lawyers are always out there, and people look at you and I'm like, how are you a lawyer? You're too quiet. And I remember back when I was in practice, active practice, I was actually a litigator. And the opponent would look at me and say, oh, she's really quiet. So maybe they would think that was an edge for them. And then when we get into court and I begin to speak or present, and the person looks at me and said, is that not the same lawyer we just met outside? So it was always interesting to see their faces, and they can't just put the two persons together and say, oh, she's different when she's in court. And yeah, it was really interesting learning from Managed Privacy Canada. I was able to actually get hands-on experience, which really, really helped me when I began to actively look for a job after my exams. And I began to understand the management or the operationalizing privacy. So it was one thing to have the knowledge to know about the laws. It was a different ballgame operationalizing those things you had learned from the CIBPC. And that was something I gained from volunteering with Managed Privacy Canada.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm looking at the questions and I'm thinking you've answered all of you, so many. No, but this is great because we have established you do need certifications. In Canada, anyway, this is the space. If you want to work mostly in the private sector, but now even in the public sector, they would ask for CIPPC or so. Certifications are important. Knowledge is paramount. Like you have to read, keep up, get into networks, talk to people, talk on LinkedIn, read the stuff that comes across on LinkedIn. And you all three touched on the kind of what are the skills, operational, like hands-on, very important. But here's one question that is glaring at me. What top skills are needed to thrive in privacy? And please include technical skills. Safayat, you've touched a little bit on it. Sarah, you did. So I'm not going to point anyone who wants to take this on, please do.
Okay, I could start. So
the
for me,
quiet ones, we always have to watch for the quiet ones.
Okay, so for me, I think you must be someone who is at least a little bit technological savvy. You must have an interest in technology to be able to thrive in the privacy space. You mustn't be a guru, but you must have that interest and you must be willing to learn about it. Another skill that would really help is you must be someone who loves reading or you're open to learning new things because the laws keep changing. It keeps evolving at the speed of light. So you have to keep on top of regulatory changes and what's happening in the privacy industry. So you must be someone who loves to read. Your research skills must also be on top of the game because you would have to do a lot of research, analyze what you find, and see how it applies to your business or to your organization. And another top skill I would also say is one thing to have the knowledge or to find out the knowledge. It's another thing to be able to pass that knowledge across to your organization, to be able to advise the business. And so for speaking from a lawyer perspective, nobody wants to know what the law is, strictly speaking. They want to know how to apply the law, how to achieve the business objective, despite what the law says.
What do I do? I get the letter of the law, but what do I do now?
Exactly. So what do I do? People want you to tell them what to do. So you must be able to apply that knowledge of the law and be able to tell them exactly what is needed for them to achieve the business objective, while at the same time they're complying with what the law says they should do.
And just to add to that, Mercy, and this also touches on a couple of the questions we have on the board there. When you talk about operationalizing, I feel like it's very important for privacy professionals to understand different industries and what business processes are entailed to that particular or specific business that has come to you. And the technical knowledge of that industry. Now, a trend I have noticed within the privacy space that a lot of people getting hired might come with a legal background, myself and Mercy included. But a lot of lawyers, what they will be missing is the industry-specific knowledge. Now, we can read the statute and make a recommendation saying, in order to operationalize these policies and procedures, you would need to have certain roles and responsibilities or a program developed. But when we take a particular business, for example, maybe in the healthcare industry, or maybe someone who is working with a lot of data that doesn't only include personal information, but personal information is part of that. Now, how do you segregate that? How do you bring in those nuanced recommendations or suggestions or advice that you want your clients to follow, or the people who are having these pain points? We end up saying, have a document everything. And I came across this from Paul Breitbart on Serious Privacy last night, that a lot of the lawyers will just say, document everything to establish a functioning privacy program. But that does not solve the problem for the clients or specific individuals who are coming to us. In order to address those specific issues, we need to have the technical knowledge of that industry. And this kind of feeds in to the fact that, do we need to have a legal background to make it in privacy? Answer is no. Someone from healthcare might bring in that gap in knowledge and fill in that blank for the privacy team who are functioning with the legal aspects of it. And one other thing that I'm going to just touch on, but I'm going to hand the baton off to Sarah, because I know she realizes how important it is, which is project management. If we are trying to establish a privacy program, we need to know how to convert small projects into a program. But I'm going to hand it off to Sarah to speak to that.
Yeah, of course. I think Mercy and Safia really covered a lot of good ground. I think one of my early mentors mentioned that if you don't like reading and you want to get into the privacy space, this industry is not for you. I think all of us collectively spend most of our time reading. There's always new change coming through the pipeline. And so we'll touch upon like a few resources that we all use collectively to get our knowledge. In terms of operationalizing, I think project management is huge. Safia mentioned that. I think being able to explain the value that privacy has is really important, to break down different projects and show how different stakeholders within the business can work together with you to get across the finish line is really important. Privacy, as a privacy professional, you spend a lot of time talking to people outside of privacy. And so you have to get very comfortable talking to different types of people in different business units. So like people in security, people in audit, people in compliance, spend a lot of time talking to project managers, program managers. And so as a privacy professional, it's very important that you're able to translate not only the law, but how other teams can day-to-day operationalize that privacy. And it's all about having good, meaningful conversations, being able to, I think one of the skills I learned at Shopify is being able to draft project management templates and being able to explain how a project will be delivered and what the scope is like for privacy and privacy work there. So I think one of the other major things that one should note is that how business makes decisions, that's really important, like understanding, and it's different in every business because privacy also sits in different places in every business. So how a privacy team under legal operates is very different than how a privacy team under the CISO operates, or how a privacy team under compliance operates. And so knowing the ins and outs of how your privacy team is able to make decisions at the top level down is also a very important skill to operationalize in privacy.
Yes, excellent. Kind of a follow on to that, I wanted to ask you if, and you don't have to say the names, but if you use any tools for privacy. And I want to say to the audience, in today's day and age, I was just talking to a lady who reached out to me just like Mercy, wanting to volunteer. And I said, one thing you're going to need to add in your arsenal is privacy compliance technology tools. So just for the audience to know, there are privacy compliance tools for consent management. for data subject requests, so individuals' requests to companies saying, hey, I want to know what information you have about me. There are tools monitor or allowing you to report, log, and investigate data breaches, privacy breaches. There are tools for privacy management programs, so you can put your entire program into a tool. Tools for PIAs, we don't even, that's like almost becoming the norm. So there are many compliance tools out there that help the privacy professional. And I wanted to ask you if you're using anything in your day-to-day. You don't have to name the technology, just kind of what. But also tools are not for all companies. Some companies are smaller, less mature. So I'll go to Sarah. I'll go to you because I know you've used some tools, and then we'll pass it over.
Yeah. So I've used a plethora of tools over my career, and that ranges from Wirewheel to OneTrust. I know Nimity and TrustArc have a really good tool, and I've noticed that different platforms have different strengths. So I personally like using a combination of tools. I know that OneTrust has a really good, strong platform for a suite of privacy tools. And my favorite tool out of theirs is their knowledge management tool, Data Guidance. I use that to keep on top of all of the changing laws and regulations that are coming up. They also have a great blog area where they post about more opinion type pieces, which is also interesting to see. Different privacy professionals in different countries will have different opinions about one certain topic or a regulatory fine, for example, or an investigation. So there's not one way to approach privacy problems. There's usually three. And so I think Data Guidance captures that very well. I can talk about this openly because this is public knowledge, but Shopify uses Wirewheel, and Wirewheel was the choice for us because we were able to work with them to really integrate them into our complex business model, and they were able to modify their tool to accommodate and adjust to our requirements and needs. And so when we were doing the vetting process, they were very flexible and have given us many hours modifying the tool to what Shopify specifically needs for its growth, not only for the year that we needed it, but for 5 years, 10 years down the line. So different tools offer, I think, different.
And that's a completely unique experience to actually plan how to use these tools for privacy compliance in the different aspects that tool addresses. I want to recommend to people read about PIAs. This is one skill that you all are going to need to have as a basic. UK has a privacy impact assessment form. The CNIL, the French regulator, they're free. Look at on the FTC website, probably the California Privacy AG Attorney General's website. So there's free, and there are completed PIAs that are free out there, so you can see. Safaya and Mercy, what do you guys use? What are your tools?
Mercy?
So we use OneTrust as well, and I somehow find OneTrust to be like industry standard. And they have free certification too. So for those that are interested, you could register for their free webinars, free certification, just to have an idea how to use the tool, so that by the time you land the job, you're already equipped to be able to use it.
Thanks for that, Mercy. And I think this tooling aspect will be more important as the cookie laws flesh out around the world. And OneTrust, I also felt like they're leading the charge from there. But I'm going to deviate from OneTrust a little bit and maybe not just talk about tools that help us manage privacy issues, but other tools that can also aid in managing privacy.
That's right.
And which can be like information security tools, like data loss prevention, like user entity behavior and analytics. Yep. They all have privacy components built into them. And while it might not allow you to build out PIAs or build out cookie modules within those tools, what it will do is help you realize where personal information is being processed without you even knowing it. DLP is very, very useful in flagging when personal information is sent out, especially in bulk, from within an organization through email without much protection. User entity behavior analytics has the capability of machine learning and analytics to reinforce their learning by monitoring what your employees or contractors who you have given access to certain segregated zones of your network to, and how they're interacting with the information on those networks and storage devices. And that gives the organization the intelligence to monitor, to set baselines and identify trends. But at the same time, it can also be a privacy issue in itself, depending on the jurisdiction where employee or contractor personal information falls within the regulation that you will have to document and demonstrate that you are respecting their privacy as well. So that's one nuance or caveat of privacy tooling.
Of the specific, like the dedicated privacy compliance tools. Absolutely correct. I want to change gears a little bit. I want to tackle two more questions if we can. One is, what does a day in your life looks like in privacy? And the last question, if we have time for it, and we'll look at the chat, what's been in the chat as well. But the second question I want to ask you is, what's next for you? How are you planning your privacy career for the next 3 to 5 years? So let's start with a day in the life of Sarah. What kind of issues, what kind of things are thrown across your desk for privacy?
Yeah, and I think that the three of us can agree that, and the four of us here, that a single day is not the same. Yeah. So every single day is a new challenge and new things get thrown at you. So some days, if there's like an incident, for example, you spend a lot of time doing incident management, and there's a lot of requirements there, such as notification and communication that has to go out. So that's all hands on deck. And then some days it's less intense. And so a lot of the time,
maybe training. Yeah.
Yeah, doing trainings to the teams. And also making note of all of the regulatory interactions that are happening that week. I spend a lot of time watching the news and making sure that, we are taking note of all the fines and investigations that are taking place in other tech companies in the world, and what the takeaways are and how we can improve our posture when it comes to compliance. I spend a lot of time looking up all of the different laws that are coming and populating in different parts of the world, how they differ from the GDPR, how they align. China is one that I'm reading up about a lot these days. So it's really interesting, very similar to GDPR, but also very different.
Oh, very different. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think the best work that I do is training teams in privacy and having them, extending a hand forward in ways that we can work with them in an agile and strong way. And I think team building is important, and just making sure that the business feels supported by the privacy team, and that we're not a project blocker. More so, we are there to help remove roadblocks and not slow down the product and the project cycle. If you can imagine, I've been a part of a few companies that move at a very fast pace. And so it's very important for privacy teams to appear and to perform in a very agile way, that
privacy business friendly way.
Yes.
Business encouraging ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, opens up clear communication pathways between the privacy team and other teams within the organization. I also think it creates a level of trust within the business and the privacy team, and it's really important. I think the most important thing to push privacy agenda forward is to have buy-in from other teams, and it's impossible for a privacy team to do everything. We really need the support of other teams within an organization to push the needle forward and to make change.
That's very well said. Mercy, your day must look a little bit different than Sarah's. You're like reading all the laws and trying to advise everyone, telling them, don't do that, don't do this in India or China or Russia or, you know, whatever.
Yes, I actually agree with Sarah. So every day is different. Some days you wake up, thinking this is how your day will go, and then you get on the job and it goes a different way. Most times it's either you're training or drafting new policies, or you're working with the product team. So because we have businesses not just in Canada, but in various other jurisdictions. So you also have to keep up to date with laws and all these other jurisdictions to understand what's happening there. And then you have to transform those laws. You have to summarize them, transform them to how the business will understand. You have to work with the product and the service teams, especially when they're launching new products or new services, to do PIAs, understand what the product is all about, advise them on how they're going about their launching, work with marketing when they want to start any campaigns. So it's different things on a daily basis, and it's very interesting because you never get bored.
That's right.
You always look forward to something new to do. Yeah.
Yeah, Safaya, for you must be also, you're straddling two worlds, private sector and public sector. That's like,
Oh yes, but I feel Sarah's pain though. I've worked in compliance, and sometimes those conversations with each of the business units, when you go in to do a risk analysis, which will feed into a PIA, it might seem like an audit to them, and they become defensive. So it's very important to build that trust when we are in compliance and building a privacy program from the ground up. But what I want to focus here is, this is a question that I had been struggling with before I actually made it into the industry or could break into the industry. And that's one of the primary drivers that enabled me or encouraged me to enroll into the course at UFT SCS that you teach. And what I have learned there, I am still using day to day. Putting in the privacy principles in a matrix and being able to organize the privacy issues in that matrix, being able to develop strategy hypothesis, being able to distinguish between a risk analysis and a privacy impact analysis. These are things that I had no idea about before I enrolled into the course, but these are some of the technical skills that we use every day. Lastly, one thing you've always mentioned in class is that we can't excel if we don't build the habit of reading in privacy. So that is one of the most important things, and that alludes to Mercy's point as well, that we have to keep updating ourselves with all these new legislations that are coming in, being able to interpret them when even the European courts are having trouble interpreting them properly. We're trying to enforce them. And we are in that unique space to do that translation for our clients and stakeholders.
Yep. No, very, very well said. I want to move on to the next question and also see if I can, I'm going to stop sharing and see if I can go to the chat. Actually, I can go to the chat, the video. Yes, you can ask questions from the panelists. If you have anything, put it in the chat. Before we go to the last question, which is, how do you plan your next bit of the journey in privacy? What is next for you? We don't need to know exactly what your next plans are, but what are you doing to keep moving forward? I just want to remind everyone this session is recorded. We will provide the recording and we will have more sessions like these where we talk about practical privacy on the ground. So these sessions or panels, webinars will be advertised on the Managed Privacy website, www.managedprivacy.ca, or on LinkedIn. You can follow all of us and you will see when these events come up. So going to the next question, what's next in the journey and how did you think about these next steps? Who wants to go first? Safayat, you go first.
It's very important to appreciate the fact that privacy is evolving continuously and continually. And in the next 3 to 5 years, I don't see why it would stop. Something interesting that I came across on the World Economic Forum recently was that one of the future jobs that are probably not still here is algorithm auditing. And if the trajectory goes that way, I think just like that, a lot of other disciplines will open up in specific sectors or industries, even. So, depending on uh, anyone who's passionate about, let's say, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, there will be scope to educate ourselves on that particular industry and the privacy issues that revolve around that. So when we are trying to look into the next 3 to 5 years, we will have to have that factored in. And in my case, it has been for a very long time AI, cybersecurity, cybernetics, and all the privacy issues and information security issues that can entail those disciplines. So I would want to keep educating myself on those aspects and see how the world turns out and where my technical and soft skills collide with that opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent. That's very interesting. Mercy, what's next for you? I mean, you're drinking from a fire hose right now, just like Safaya. So how can you even plan for next steps?
Okay, so next steps for me is I currently studying for my CIPM. I also want to do the CIPP US because we have business in the US and I would like to learn more about the privacy landscape in the US. I'm interested in the cloud space so I want to learn more about cloud services generally and how privacy works in that space. And maybe move into artificial intelligence. And so that will be the trajectory for my career going forward.
And Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, so Amalia mentioned that I'm currently studying to write my CIPM, which I think is a great certification to take. Something that we didn't really touch upon is that the IAPP has some amazing certifications that a lot of us have here, and they just give you an industry stamp of approval, and you're at a certain, that means you're operating at a certain level, which is good. They're internationally recognized. You only have to take them once, and then you have to take hours to upkeep your certification. It's a great initiative for a lot of people trying to enter the privacy space. I tell a lot of people that come to me and ask me for career advice what they should do. And I say, if you don't have prior privacy experience, the IPP certifications are a great start, and pivot into the privacy space. I would love to get my project management certificate, the PMP. That's something I'm working towards, taking on more project management roles at work, making sure I'm getting those hours in. I know, Amalia, you have your PMP, so maybe you can touch upon your experience having that and working with that in the privacy space. But I feel like if you're someone that wants to get into tech and you want to get into privacy in the tech world, having a PMP is a very strong asset and combines very well with other skill sets that you may have, whether it be a legal background or cybersecurity or compliance background. And then mixed with the IPP certifications or even the U of T course, having that really, I think, rounds you out as a privacy professional.
I really liked what you said. And I think for our audience, you need to understand technology. You need to know how to organize your work. So that's tech and that's project management. Privacy has become so advanced into technology that if you don't understand how the technology works, you won't understand how that law applies. You won't understand how you can advise the business on compliance. Don't think that the business actually understands the technology. I have found many times that we privacy professionals understand technology better than the business. So you absolutely have to get yourself educated in tech, whichever way you can. Knowledge of risk management and cybersecurity are very important because they intersect so much with privacy. They are actually an aid. At Managed Privacy, we actually work together, the privacy specialists with the security specialists, as a team to provide those kinds of advisory services to clients, because they don't know either, and they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know what they need. And when we explain things from both perspectives, that's when they go, oh, okay, that is exactly what we didn't know. Right, Safaya?
Yes, that's particularly true when we ask them about data flows. If they understand how what API pools are, application programming interface, and sometimes we'll ask a simple question about, do you know where this data is coming from? And they'll say, well, we have it in our database. But how did it get to the database? Where does it go from the database? Who are you sharing it with? Having understanding of that vision and how these technologies can play in together, that's a huge blind side in the industry right now, not just for businesses, but for privacy professionals too.
For
that can be an issue.
That's right. That's right. Well, those were the last and very wise words for our panel today. I want to thank our panelists again, Mercy, Safayat, and Sarah, for a phenomenal session. And let's hope we can do it again soon. And with that, that's the end of our webinar today. Thank you very much for attending. And I hope, well, we'll give you the recording, and I hope this helps. Have a great year, everyone, and happy Data Privacy Week again.
Thank you for having us.
To be here.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.